everyone, and welcome to the highly anticipated 5th Annual Women's Leadership Luncheon. Together with P&M, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us in this special event. Over the course of the last couple of months, we've been celebrating women in New Mexico who personify agility. In the true spirit of agility, we've had to change our plans, especially after the governor's health order in November, but that's given us the opportunity to continue to celebrate women in New Mexico and women in our community. My name is I'm the Projects and Events Manager here at the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce. This is my first year working on this special event, and I have to say it has been absolutely wonderful and inspiring and humbling in so many ways. We've worked with strong leaders across the entire spectrum in the community, from women-owned restaurants to our entire team putting this together, all of our incredible speakers. We conducted radio interviews for the entire month. Everybody that it took to make this possible is a true testament to the power and spirit of women in New Mexico. We've had a great lineup leading up to this point with our Power of Lunch and Learn speakers. We started with Monique Jacobson back in November, who taught us about leading with grace and integrity and being kind to ourselves. Cheryl Alters Jameson inspired us to keep going in difficult times and find the things that really bring us joy and stay true to that. Patricia Quintana yesterday reminded us that strong women are both the past and the future. And that leads us to today. We've had some really great conversations and we're excited to keep that going. Of course, none of this would be possible without the help of our sponsors and our team. First and foremost, we'd like to thank P&M for continuing to support us on this for our 5th year with them. Thank you for being our title sponsor, P&M. Our empowerment level sponsors are Christus St. Vincent, New Mexico Gas Company, Los Alamos National Laboratory, Enterprise Bank and Trust, Savant Wealth Management, Hutton Broadcasting, U.S. Bank, Cisneros Design, City of Santa Fe Economic Development, First National 1870, and Elevation Financial Group. Thank you to our empowerment sponsors. Next, thank you to our mentoring sponsors. We have Ageless Aesthetics Medispa, Capital Counsel and Consulting, Del Norte Credit Union, New Senda Credit Union, and Thornburg Investment Women of Thornburg. Thank you to Gardenia Jungle Entertainment and Hutton Broadcasting for producing some promotional videos that you'll see throughout the program today. Thank you to Convention Services of the Southwest for providing our beautiful set furnishings that we used for the last 2 power-ups. Thank you to La Fonda Hotel for providing this space that we used yesterday and today. And hopefully you at home are enjoying your lunch thanks to Club Foodie as our food sponsor. I would like to give a very special thank you to Heather Hunter from Heather Hunter Marketing for all of her hard work in coordinating. We could not have done this without you. And of course, the rest of our Women's Leadership Task Force, Joella Montedio, Jill Enlow, and Stephanie Graham. Last but certainly not least, I want to thank Henry Lopez from the Santa Fe New Mexican. Henry has been providing all of our behind-the-scenes tech support. He's the man behind the camera and the computer for this entire series. So we're very thankful and literally could not do it without Henry. So thank you to everybody that makes this possible. So that leads us to today. The highlight of the Women's Leadership Luncheon is always the panel conversation, and we have a spectacular panel coming up. But for the first time ever, we have an opening speaker who's going to give us some opening remarks as our keynote speaker. So I'd like to introduce Michelle Baca. She is an award-winning author. She is a confidence coach and a speaker. So I want to invite Michelle Baca to take the stage.
About 10 years ago, when my daughter Talia was 5 years old, me and my husband at the time left her with Grandma and Grandpa for the weekend so that we could sleep in. Saturday morning, I rolled out of bed, drove to Starbucks in my pajamas, took my half-calf Americano back to the couch, started watching one of those really cheesy Lifetime movies. You know, those ones where you just know how it's gonna end, but you can't stop watching? Then on a trip back from the laundry room on a commercial break, I hear him calling out to me from down the hall. Hey, Jacques, come here, look what I did. I walk into the office, I peer over his shoulder at the computer screen. I see a blurred out video with a big white arrow in the middle. He clicks play, video starts rolling, and I see myself walking across our bedroom towards the bed, and I'm naked. I said, what is this? What did you do? If you would have asked me first, maybe I would have said yes, but you didn't, did you? he still didn't get it. I mean, what kind of person would make a sex tape of his wife behind her back? I turned away, walked out the door, gave him the silent treatment for the rest of the weekend. A couple of weeks later, I'm working at home alone, sitting in front of that same computer screen. And I have this thought, should I watch it? I didn't know if I wanted to see what I looked like. I thought I would look hideous because from what I knew so far, I wasn't wearing any makeup that day. I hadn't even combed my hair. And of course, I didn't know I was being recorded, so I wasn't sucking in my tummy. But I was curious enough to go find it. Then I press play. Video starts rolling. Her hair doesn't look so bad. I let that woman babysit my kids. She looks sweet. I like her. Who is this woman? I was looking at this version of myself and I almost didn't recognize myself. For the first time, I saw what I must look like when I'm unconcerned with what people think of me. That's when I really started letting go of my masks and my walls. A couple of months later, I walked onto a conference stage to deliver a keynote presentation. And I took a little piece of the energy of that woman I saw on video with me. And I started to experience how much more fun, how much easier, how much more free I could feel when I'm just being myself. Watching yourself naked on video is hard, but being naked with your clothes on, being emotionally naked out in the world is actually a lot harder. That's why today I love being able to help women release self-consciousness, radiate natural confidence and magnetism. In the weeks and the months leading up to this conference, I started to contemplate, how does this work that I do around vulnerability, confidence, magnetism, letting go? How does it relate to the conference theme of agility? And it became very clear. It's nearly impossible to be agile, responsive, adaptable when you are carrying around the weight of self-judgment, self-doubt, carrying around the weight of other people's expectation and other people's judgments. Can you imagine out in the wild if a cheetah were out there trying to survive wearing heavy iron armor? How long would that cheetah survive? It's difficult to react and to pounce on opportunities if you are carrying around that kind of weight. In addition to adding unwanted weight to you while you're out there trying to share your magic, what this armor of protection and these walls can do is also hinder your ability to radiate confidence and magnetism and to relate to people. Because when there is a wall between you and other people, they can't really feel your energy. They can't experience you. You don't give them an opportunity to choose you. And they need to feel who you really are. They need to see what you're made of, what kind of cloth you're cut from, in order to make a decision about you, in order to have that feeling that is, I don't know what it is about this woman. I can't really put my finger on it, but there's just something about her. I want to do business with her. I want to have tea with her. I want to recommend her to other people. So when other people can experience you in all of your humanness, imperfect and flawed, they like that. They love that. So in the time that we have left here together today, I'm going to share with you 3 strategies to help you release self-consciousness and radiate natural confidence and magnetism. The first strategy is to connect with your power center. And the phrase that I like to remember is drop in. So when you are dropping in, what you are doing is getting out of your head and into your body instead. If you can do this, if you can be truly embodied, you will set yourself apart from over 98% of the people out there, because we live in a distracted society. Start to notice when you interact with people out there in the world, very few people are able to be with you right here, right now, without any other distractions. Have you ever had the experience where you're talking to somebody and you just have the urge to snap your fingers and say, hey, back here, get back to earth, I'm right here? Because you can tell that even though their body is in front of you and even though they're nodding their heads, they are mentally somewhere else. They're thinking about what you're thinking about them. They're thinking about what they're going to say next. They're thinking about what they're going to have for dinner. It's a natural condition for most people. So if you can do this, you will set yourself apart, because it's rare to have somebody like that with that kind of focus and that kind of awareness. And that's what this practice will do for you. Help you harness that energy, bring it inside so that people can feel your passion, your aliveness, your magnetic energy. So what you can do is start noticing when you're with other people, when they enter that space, when they get into their heads, and that alone will help you notice it in yourself. Notice what happens to you, to your voice, to your body when you go into that place. We like to use the phrase being in your head, but the interesting thing is that when you're in your head, you're actually not even in your head. It's like you're outside of your body in this imaginary space above your head. So you can catch yourself, rein in that energy and connect to your power center. It's about 2.5 to 3 inches below your navel and inside of your body. It's the literal physical center point of gravity for your body. A very powerful space, not just the space where you create life, but it's a space where you create ideas. It's where your creativity comes from. It's where your life force comes from. I have an entire chapter in my book dedicated to helping you connect to this space. So for everyone that is with us here today, I'm offering a free downloadable chapter of that chapter from my book. If you're interested in the entire book, it's available on Amazon. The name is The Sweet Spot, Your Roadmap to Maximum Confidence and Magnetism. So be on the lookout for that link, or reach out to me directly. I'll get you your free chapter so that we don't have to spend the rest of our time practicing this. You can go practice it on your own. So that is strategy number 1, drop in. Strategy number 2 is let go. This one's about releasing those walls, letting go of the masks of protection. Sometimes it's not even something bad. Sometimes we put on a confident face. Sometimes we put on a brave face, and we think that that's good, or we act confident. But just notice my body language. When I do this and I act confident, this takes energy. It's very different from relaxing, from letting go, from letting you truly see who I am. And letting go is about embracing vulnerability. And I want to share a couple of my favorite ways for practicing allowing people to really see who you are and to be willing to have all eyes on you and be the center of attention and take up space in this world like you were meant to take up, to share your gifts and to make the difference that you want to make. You need to be willing to be seen and heard in a big way. For many people, public speaking is one of their biggest fears. Common advice is that you should picture the audience naked. But actually, when you're up there, you're the one that feels naked, right? It's like the audience members, they are there and they have every opportunity, if they wanted to to pick you apart from everything that you say to how you look to your body language. It can feel like a very vulnerable place to be. That's why if you'll notice, most people, if they have the opportunity to stand up on a podium and get behind the lectern and put their notes on it, they will take that opportunity because that puts a barrier between them. Now their protection, that feels better to most people to be behind that lectern. So practice speaking without that, without protection. If a lectern's not available, you know what most people use? Their arms, right? We cross our arms, we protect our private parts like this. We do weird things. We put our hands in our pockets. We just want to protect this body because we think that if we're out here for all to see, that that's not safe, that we're making ourselves weak and prey, open to judgment. And that's true. But when you're willing to do that, it's actually pretty fascinating. It's like people want to watch what's going to happen. It's like watching somebody walk a tightrope. So you will magnetize people. You'll entrance them by being brave, being willing to put yourself out there. Give public speaking a try if you haven't already. Sign up for an improv course. If I say improv and that scares you, it still scares me too. But if it scares you, that's probably what you should do. And my number one favorite thing for being able to let go and embrace vulnerability is to tell your story. Tell your stories. I'm talking about the stories that you are embarrassed to tell. The things that you really don't want people to know about you. Most of us, we want to tell stories of our successes. We want to tell people about how we were at the top of the mountain and how we did it. And we think that's how we will inspire people. Do you think that years ago, I would have been jumping up and down with excitement to start off this talk telling you about a secret sex tape? No, it took a lot of convincing from my coach for me to be willing to tell that story. Years back, I would want to stand up here and say, hi, my name's Michelle Baca, and I wrote a book called The Sweet Spot, and I've done 15 years of consulting and coaching, and this is what works. Let me tell you why I'm so amazing. People don't want that. People want real people. They want your stories. They want your embarrassing moments. They want to hear about your failures. That's the stuff that good movies are made of. Have you noticed that? There wouldn't be much of a blockbuster movie if everything went exactly right and the movie started out like you were super successful. You were already there. What else is going to happen? No, they want darkness. They want monsters. They want tragedy. Look inside and find what is the thing that you think is unspeakable. Maybe nobody knows that thing about you. Before the pandemic, I used to coordinate circles called the Art of Feminine Presence. And in that space, a very safe, non-judgmental space is created. And one day, something happened. And this is not atypical because it's a very safe space. But this one woman in particular, as we were going around the circle, she said something that she had never shared with anyone in her life, not even her fiance that she'd been living with for 2 years at the time. And all of a sudden, she just felt compelled and it came out. And she shared with us that she had been a sex worker. And then she bursted out in laughter. She was laughing hysterically. You could see the freedom that she felt from saying it out loud, finally. And from seeing that once she did, the world didn't end. We didn't kick her out of the group. We didn't look at her like she was a freak. We smiled, we loved her. We sent her all the compassion and love that we had. Laughing as a form of release, similar to crying. So that's the other thing you can do to start to open up and let go. Allow yourself to laugh hysterically, cry hysterically, watch movies that bring out that kind of emotion, and then carry that out with you into the world, because people want to connect with real people. They want to be around real humans, not robot perfect humans. So far, we have drop in, let go, and this third strategy will help you to be able to feel like you can be vulnerable without feeling like you are susceptible. Because for a lot of people, vulnerability equals weakness. Just simply not true. One of the energetic sweet spots that I teach women to achieve is that one where you are compassionate, loving, willing to embrace your softness, your feminine energy, while at the same time being strong, solid, unbreakable. It's possible. It's possible. And I love this example that one of my mentors shared with me. Her name is Melanie. And in one training session, Melanie Ann Layer said, she used the example of an egg and a peach. So for a lot of us, we tend to want to be more like the egg, where we create a hard shell around us for protection. We might still be gooey and soft on the inside, but it's not such a great approach. One little crack in that outer coating and you're done. There's gooey everywhere. So I don't want to be an egg. I want to be the peach. Because you know the thing about peaches? They're still soft and amazing and juicy on the outside, but they've got this pit in the center. And that pit is solid as a rock. Sometimes people call it a stone, a peach stone, because it's so hard. You could take it and throw it at the floor. It's not gonna break. So people, circumstances, life can bruise you, can damage you. People may even cut out a little piece of you, but still in the center, there is that unbreakable core. So always remember that you can drop in, let go, and remind yourself that you are a peach. It's been about 20 years now that I have been deep in the world of personal development and self-growth, exploring self-love and self-worth, and learning how to embody that. And over those 20 years, I have had some moments where I realized that it was all worth it. I've also spent a lot of money, so that was some comfort. When you experience that, you're like, oh, okay, all that money I spent on all those conferences and all those coaches and all those sessions, finally paying off is a big deal. So I've had moments like that over the years. But last year, I had a defining moment. On January 31st, I was at home getting ready for bed. I just finished washing my face and brushing my teeth. I was setting my alarm on my phone and getting ready to plug it into the wall. And I took a look at my Notes app. So on iPhone, there's a little app called Notes. And I start to realize something, because I don't recognize these notes. And I'm realizing, oh, me and my husband are on the same account. And his notes are syncing to the cloud, and now they're merging with my notes. I'm looking at these notes, and I'm realizing that these are drafts of messages that he has been sending to another woman. I'm starting to put the pieces together and realize he's planning on divorcing me. I didn't end up going to sleep that night. In fact, I pulled an all-nighter for the first time in my life. Stayed up all night, took my daughter to school, came back home and confronted him. He decided to move out that night and rent an Airbnb. Over the next few days and weeks, I started to talk to friends and family about what was going on in my life. And they're very supportive. They're amazing people that I have around me. And I started to notice this theme about the things that they were telling me, because they were trying to make sure that I was okay, right? So they started telling me things like, you don't ever forget that you are amazing. You're perfect just as you are. There's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything wrong. She doesn't have anything you don't have. Any man would be lucky to have you. And I like to think that I'm a pretty nice person. So I did the polite thing, and I smiled and I nodded and I said thank you. But what was really interesting and really made me smirk and beam with pride was that on the inside, as I was hearing them tell me these things, all I could think was, yeah, I know. Like, I know I'm amazing. I know there's nothing wrong with me. I know I'll find happiness and success. Again, it was very interesting to notice myself not having any moments of self-doubt, self-criticism, poor me, oh no. And also at that moment, deepen my conviction to do this kind of work, because I want everyone to have that level of self-worth and self-confidence that no matter what comes at you, no matter what people do to you, what people say to you, that you remember that deep inside you is that unbreakable stone, is your power center, is your life force energy. So always remember that you are a peach.
Thank you so much for your inspiring words. I hope everybody has had a moment to get inspired and to take some moment to reflect. I'm going to invite our panelists to join the stage, and while we switch sets, I encourage you to watch a short video featuring some women in our community that we think are worth spotlighting. So we're going to take just a quick break, stay here on the main stage as I invite our panelists to join us, and we'll continue with the conversation. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. What an absolute fantastic, inspiring story. Michelle Baca, thank you so much. We really enjoyed hearing your message today. And also I want to thank Katie Kickner, who did the opening announcements once again for all of her hard work with this event. She spent hours and hours putting it together and she did an absolute fantastic job. So just a shout out to my team for all the work that they have done. Once again, my name is Bridget Dixon. I'm the President and CEO of the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce, and it is my pleasure to be here with you for our 5th annual Women's Leadership Luncheon. Along with my co-host, Sayuri Yamada from P&M, we're excited that we can continue to have this conversation. This looks a little bit different this year. Normally we get together in person and we have a room full of people, but we're just happy that we can bring this to you even in a virtual platform. I also just want to, just quickly before we move on, I just want to remind you that if you'd like to get more information on Michelle Baca, make sure you visit Michelle Baca's website and you can pick up a copy of The Sweet Spot. This year's theme is about agility. And let me tell you, I know a lot of us have had to pivot and reinvent ourselves over the last 8 months. So the theme of agility is more important now than ever. And I'm so excited about the women that we have joining us because they have demonstrated agility, not just this year, but for many, many years. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists. First of all, with us, we have on our virtual, I hope you can see Jen with us. Jen, welcome. We have Secretary Jen Schroer.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you perfectly. Thank you. She's the Cabinet Secretary for the Tourism Department for the state of New Mexico. And she wasn't able to be here with us in person, but she's still able to join us virtually. So that's the beauty of this platform. I also like to welcome with us today, Susan Matteucci. She's the founder and executive director of Southwest Creations Collaborative. And then the Honorable Martha Vasquez, who is a United States District Judge and the first woman to be appointed as a federal judge in New Mexico. And of course, the co-founder and my co-host for the last 5 years, Sayuri Yamada with P&M Resources. Sayuri, thank you so much for joining us. We've been doing this a long time together.
We have. This is probably one of my favorite events that I have the opportunity to do, co-hosting this. And this is very special and dear to my heart. I really, what Michelle was saying earlier about really that people want to connect with real people. And I think this is something that we've always done. We've brought in some amazing women to just really share their stories and to be able to connect with our audience and all these other women in New Mexico. So with that, we're just really excited to be here. And as Bridget mentioned, the theme is about agility. So I'd like to ask each one of our panelists here today, share what agile means to you. So maybe Martha, do you want to go first?
Well, agility to me means being flexible, being able to react quickly, change. And I think mothers were pretty good at it because things happen in our lives. I think we can all relate to the fact that your children get sick. You've got a commitment in the morning, and you don't sleep, and you get up, you get dressed. As you're walking out the door, your children kiss you goodbye, and you've got boogers on your suit. And you hug them right here, and all of a sudden your suit's dirty right here, and it's not the end of the world. You've got to perform, and you clean yourself up, and you put one step in front of the other, and you get it done. I think agility to me means you're there to do a job. You may not feel well, but we focus under the best of circumstances, and we just get it done. Today it's called, and it has been for mothers, it's called multitasking. I'm not as agile now at my age as I used to be, but that's what it's called. It's called being able to get the job done because that's what you're there to do.
Oh gosh, well, I think the agility has taken on a new meaning this year, which is how to take off a mask and not get it stuck in your earring. There you go. That's about as agile as I've been all year. This year has been a time of such unknowns, and I agree with the judge about how women and agility kind of go together if you're raising a family and you're working. I think, though, this year in particular, for me, agility has really had to do with how do you deal with the fear of keeping people safe, keeping your business going, keeping people employed that are desperate for work, being relevant in the marketplace to make sure you can keep going. And these things, how do you move through that fear on an everyday basis and remain agile? And it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou, which was really something that kept me going this year, which is, hope and fear cannot occupy the same space, choose one. And so I think that every day our agility in the world is to choose hope and to keep going and to do all the things that the judge was talking about for the people around us, our businesses, and ourselves. So that is how I've been really thinking about agility this year.
Thank you, Susan. And Madam Secretary, Jen, what does agile mean to you?
Well, I think the judge pretty much described the morning. I have a 1-year-old who woke up at 4 a.m. and I got a little bit of milk throw up all over my clothes. So I am on outfit number 2 for today. So I absolutely agree. This year in particular, being agile is really asking the right questions to make sure that I keep my eye on the goal, because this year I had to change my entire goals for my agency that I represent because I couldn't bring tourism to New Mexico. So I had to start asking the right questions to shape the new goal, to then shape all of our new programs. And so that was really important. And for us, it was, how do we prepare for recovery now? And how do we protect these businesses and help them survive? And that shaped our whole team on how they moved forward. So I think asking those questions are really important. But also, I really believe in these times, protecting your heart, protecting your mind from negativity is really important when you're in a position of leadership, because you are being scrutinized. It is very difficult. And to stay focused and to stay agile, you have to keep yourself healthy. And I think us as women sometimes forget that, because we're not only moms, we're not only running the house, we're not only in leadership positions. And so we forget to take care of ourselves. And so those are the 3 things that really come to mind when I think of agility.
Thank you, Jen. What an absolute great answer. And you really, really nailed it. I think as women, we have a habit of taking so much on to begin with. And I think now with this virtual platform, we're doing even more, because instead of attending 5 meetings in one day, you can actually do 10 because you're on Zoom the entire day and you never pad in those potty breaks or those bathroom breaks, and just to eat the basic need of to have eating and feeding yourself and working out. So that's something skills, and whether we're on it agility or we're pivoting or we're collaborating, we definitely have picked up a lot of skills. And just kind of following up to what you mentioned about leadership, this is kind of a general question for everyone. What leadership skills and techniques do you think are helpful to initiate and sustain the process of agility? And anyone can grab that one.
I think what I've had to do this year a lot is when you're faced with so many challenges, I think as a leader, there's an instinct to just kind of like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And we're going to jump in and we're going to do it because I'm going to show the way, and then everybody's going to relax. And I think that what I've learned is that you need to bring your team with you and listen to where everyone is as you're making those decisions. We're not looking for one person to lead us through. And I think leaders have to struggle with that sometimes because we feel it's part of our responsibility. But when I feel that I'm being a good leader, it's when I'm able to listen, take an input, because I always miss something, and then have compassion, but really know at the end of the day, we all just need to keep moving forward and keeping that moving forward and listening to people around you so that you're kind of all in this together is an important way to stay both healthy and then also make sure that you have the best chance for succeeding with your team of people, that whether you're in business or in government, because we're listening is the main skill. And I think under stress, sometimes I struggle with listening because I just want to be able to be proactive and jump in there sometimes. So that's what I have to keep reminding myself of.
Anyone else? Jen, would you like to chime in? All right, well, I'm actually going to propose a follow-up question to you, Susan. And I just want to mention that Susan has an absolute fantastic website, and I really encourage you to go visit it. And there's so much great information to the point where it really got me quite emotional. So I'm going to read a couple of things off of her website. First of all, the mission of Southwest Collaborative is, our mission is to alleviate poverty and build opportunity across generations. And this is a quote that's on her website. When a woman is given the opportunity to earn an income, she will invest in her children first, a strategy shared by organizations around the world. So Susan, my question is, what do you do in your workplace to create a women-driven enterprise? And how do you foster and support future leaders?
Right, thank you. I think what I talked about before about listening, you know, that there's a group of us that founded Southwest Creations together. And it was always about we make this work in a world where we all have many things that we're doing, raising families, we need income. Many of the women that work with us, it was their first job outside of the home. And they did use that income to support their children and their opportunities. But I think when you think about leadership, one thing that I've learned is you really don't create a leader. I think what our job as people that are leading organizations or businesses is you give a person opportunities to really build their skills and competences to take on leadership. And where I've seen that be the most effective is when a person has her own personal journey that she has gone through, and then she can share that with other people. And then she realizes that, gee, I'm gaining leadership because it's like Michelle was talking about. We listen from one another, we learn, it gives us confidence. I see all the time that a mother who doesn't have her GED will go to pursue that once her child is in school and she's working with the child to do better in school and stay. So that gives the mother more like, well, gosh, let's do this together. Let's do our GED together. Let's do our, you know, you can do your homework, I'll do my homework. And so there's a woman in particular at Southwest Creations named Flor Lopez, who's actually our leadership development director, who came in as a very shy person, super smart, but like didn't quite know where to put her best abilities, I think. And over the course of being at Southwest Creations, she's gotten her GED, she's gotten her citizenship, her English has gotten so much better. And along the way, she has 3 daughters that are amazing. And her involvement with those girls in school and helping them navigate the process helped her discover her own leadership. I can help other people do this because I understand what it's like for a mother raising kids, maybe in a new school situation that I'm not used to. What does one need to do? And as a result of that, we worked with the women and the families in our organization who would be sort of considered at-risk kids and had a 98% graduation rate from high school because the mothers learned how to navigate with the kids. It was a family event. Flor's children, her oldest daughter is a nuclear engineer at Sandia Labs. Another one works for a law firm. And I mean, they're just amazing. And she is the role model for the women around us to see that, gee, not only can Flor do it, but look what's happening with her children. So I think creating the opportunities for people to fulfill their own dreams for themselves and their families is really something that drives Southwest Creations to be both a successful business and to run this college readiness program. And I heard so much of what the judge was talking about in her own life that inspired me to think about the young women that I work with who are driven by, you know, I'm going to do this because I'm the first in my family, or I want to help my community. And it's really so powerful and their leadership just blossoms that way with some good direction and some coaching, but it comes up that way, I think. So that's what our women-driven enterprise
I love
looks like.
hearing that story about what your organization does. I love that.
So kind of piggyback on that, but Jen, I know you're virtual, and we can definitely see you. So, and we want to kind of keep this very natural and free form. So if there's something you want to just jump in, just wave at us and we'll, call upon you to jump in and be a part of this conversation. I think that's what's wonderful about this virtual world, and created new opportunities for us to not have to all be physically in one location. So definitely don't be shy. I know you're not going to be shy, but just raise your hand and we'd love for you to.
Thank you. I actually got kicked out for a second, so I lost track of what question you were on, but happy to chime in as needed, of course. And no, I'm not shy.
Great, thanks, Jen. Kind of piggyback on what Susan said about, this journey and our journey. So I'd like to ask Martha, during your journey as the first female federal judge, what did you think is the most significant barrier for a woman in a leadership role as you were making your journey?
I'll take this off so you can hear me better. Well, the context is very different from today. This was many, many years ago. It was, I was 40. This was in 1993. There were very few women lawyers. There were even fewer women on the federal bench. So that was the context. It was a very difficult time because men weren't used to seeing us in this position, and they were very uncomfortable with us. And so it was a time in which my children were tiny. My youngest was 3, my oldest was 9, and I had 4. It was a time in which I had to travel a great deal, 3 months at a time away from my children. And they weren't used to it, of course, and I wasn't either. My husband was a practicing lawyer also, and it really took a toll on my family life. It took a toll on me. And being the first woman on the federal bench, I didn't dare, couldn't possibly think of asking my male colleagues for some help. I could just imagine the response would have been, you see, that's what you get when you hire a woman to take on this role. I had children that were angry with me, and it was, family life that was suffering from this. I had a situation today. We invite, the nominees as soon as the president nominates them to our meetings, and I didn't get an invitation like that. Today, of course, we have social events with them. Their offices are ready. I didn't have an office ready. I came to work with a brand new staff, no place to work, a tiny wooden desk, and a ton of cases and no place to work. Thankfully, things are much different today. I didn't have anyone to call. There was no other woman in my shoes anywhere that I knew. So it was a very difficult time for me. I'd gone to an all-male school for college and law school. I was used to being the only one. But this was difficult and overwhelming. So I would say that in time I got used to it. I learned the position, but it was extremely lonely and difficult. For me, the hardest part was not the legal ropes. It was not knowing how to maneuver um, not being able to do my job and be a mom too. Thankfully, I had my mom.
So I remember when we were chatting a little bit, because, you know, those were very different times, and it was almost like it was tough for you, but also for the men. They weren't used to working with a female colleague. So it was one of those situations, it was just awkward for both sides.
Yes.
And how they would interact with you and work with you was just something that was very unfamiliar. And actually, you know, when you told me that story, it reminded me when back in college, I practiced judo. And in the United States, we train, men and women, we train together. But in Japan, men and women don't train together. And as you know, judo is a very physical contact sport. And I remember I went to participate in the university's team in Japan. It's all men. I was the only female. And then there's this time when they say, okay, spar, you know, and you got to grab your partner. And I just stood there. And before I knew it, nobody picked me and I was by myself. And that happened over and over. And I was thinking, okay, how am I going to overcome this? Because they were very uncomfortable, you know, being that close to another female and, you know, and sparring and the body contact. So I wanted to ask you, Martha, when was that time when it changed, you know, where they actually looked at you as a colleague and they kind of got over their own personal fears of, you know, working side by side with a female colleague? What was that kind of that tipping point, or how do you remember that change?
Well, I think it wasn't any type of animus. It wasn't that type of thing. I think it was a matter of being uncomfortable. I was a woman. I was a Mexican-American woman. I had been a public defender for 3 years before I went into private practice. And the federal bench, especially then, is a bastion of older white men that were very conservative. So it took several years. You know, no one offered to share their knowledge, their experience with me. I think it was about 3 years into it, maybe. I happened to run into one of the older judges in a restaurant in Las Cruces, which is where we have a federal courthouse, and I was there doing criminal trials. And he ran into me in a restaurant, and he came up to me and asked if he could join me. We were both sitting at separate tables, and he saw me and he came over. And we chatted and had a wonderful chat, and at the end of the dinner, he turns to me and he said, "Martha, you're very nice." and I had to laugh because he was so surprised. And, you know, after that, it got nicer. But, you know, women with small children, after work, we have to run home. You know, we don't have the luxury. In private practice, I couldn't do this either. We don't, at that time, people did cocktails after work. And, you know, the federal bench was no different. They used to do cocktails. And I started getting invitations, but I couldn't accept them because I'm gone so much. I have to get home and see my children. And I had to cook. And then after we had dinner and baths and checked backpacks and did homework, we read. I mean, for tomorrow, I prepared for the next day. And it ended up being a really nice groove because I always did. As lawyers, my then husband and I prepared our cases and my children did their homework. So it was really a nice groove. But it gives, you know, young women, we were chatting about this, Susan and I, young women, we have to have our children at a certain time. And, you know, it's the whole biological clock thing, you know, but that's also the time when professionally we are working and we are becoming established. And so it's an exhausting time in our life. There's no time for socializing with other women. So you really don't have a lot of friends and a lot of social support. My mother was key for me because she worked My grandmother before me worked. I don't have that guilt that a lot of people have because all the women in my family have worked. But I did lack women that were my age, that were lawyers, that I could go to lunch with and go shopping with and have a drink with. I can do that now because I don't have children around anymore. But at that time when I needed it the most, it was not present in my life because I was so busy.
Yeah. Maybe just kind of following up, Jen, I'm sure you can relate to this now as, working in this very, very, tough position with a lot of responsibilities, and you still have little ones at the house. And I can't even imagine now due to COVID, and they're probably at home doing their schoolwork, and you guys are all probably all in different rooms, and you're having to manage all this stuff. Tell us a little bit, how do you balance it all?
Well, I feel that I'm fortunate in the sense that my children are 3 years old and 1 year old. So I don't have to balance or even make the decisions around school or them wanting to socialize with their friends. So I feel fortunate in that sense. But of course, it's my husband works at home too. So we have a full house. For us, we decided to get an au pair, which has been an incredible cultural experience for us. For those that don't know what an au pair is, it's getting a young lady or male who want to come to the United States from across the country to do childcare. And they live in your home, and it's a cultural experience. And we were fortunate that we welcomed an au pair to our home in February. And it was right before the pandemic, before they shut down the borders. And that has been a really great fit for our family because we really enjoy having a young woman taking care of our kids in our house. And we enjoy, sharing that cultural experience. So that's probably how I've survived. I feel like having this position and the amount of hours that I work, the lack of flexibility in my job. But I also have to say I married well. And I am so grateful that my husband is a partner in every sense. And so it's not just me getting up in the middle of the night. We get to share those duties. It's not me just cooking. We share those duties. So that's been very helpful. But, kind of talking about careers and your journey, I had my children older. I'm in my 40s. And so the clock was really ticking. So we finally had our children. But, I started my career and all of my girlfriends were having babies in their 20s. And so now here I'm a mother with two little ones, and all of my friends, their kids are junior high school. And so it's really interesting. It's great to have that network, and, they're sharing tips with me about, parenthood, but it was kind of lonely in my 20s, not being married, not having kids, figuring out the career, being a single female. And now, as a professional and having young kids, but being a little bit older, it's kind of interesting the same way, because I have friends now that since their kids are driving, they have a lot of freedom. They get to go out for cocktails after work pre-COVID. So it's different, but that's okay. And I think everyone's journey is a little bit different. I think, if we just focus on how do we support each other, how do we create networks, how do we build our tribes, that's really helpful. And that's, as females in the workplace and as mothers, that's the way you get through life. The judge was talking about the important role her mother played in her life. And I have, dear friends that have played significant roles in mine and helping me with my children and with work. So I think it's sometimes it feels lonely when you're in these positions of leadership, but you have to reach out and ask for help.
I wanted to also take answer that question. I think we're all talking about, managing this on our own, which is very much, motherhood is the most precious and lonely experience sometimes, right? And one of the things that we decided as we were founding Southwest Creations is that we needed to have an on-site childcare. We needed to be able to work, and we needed our kids close. And so as part of, from day one, for 25 cents an hour, we have always had on-site childcare. My kids grew up there. The three I talked about, Flores children, all grew up there. And it was this great opportunity because, they're separate. We always laugh because there'll be like a speaker that comes out on the floor like, Susan, come to the daycare because your kid's done something. But every break, a child has 25, tias who love that child and care about them and push them and grow with them. And I guess what I really want to say is that, I remember Heather Wilson, when she was a congresswoman, came to visit us. And she said, Susan, why don't more people do this on-site childcare? I said, I really don't know. I mean, it hasn't been the hardest thing that we've done. It's just been central to everything we've done as a social enterprise, as our children have grown, as the programs we've developed have evolved, because they've evolved as our children have gotten older. So I guess I would also encourage us to think about, how do you create those sorts of opportunities at your workplace? I mean, we did it. It wasn't, magical, but it was essential. So I think that knowing that that is something that we all struggle with, and with fostering leadership, if a woman can work and think about work, knowing her kids are safe right there, boy, she's going to be able to really be able to give it her all. And also there's a wonderful accountability of mothers that took away, that we can help each other not go through the shame of something bad happening with your kid. We can also be a support of, that doesn't mean you're a bad mother. That means get some support, get some help. So it breaks down the isolation of all of us raising our children. So I would just encourage all of us, as we think about creating workplaces, why can't we add that, and it's possible because we've done it for 27 years. So anyway, I would just like to say we don't have to do it all by ourselves all the time.
Great answer. And Martha, I just wanted to kind of follow up with something with you that I know you talked about the culture when you first began and how it's kind of evolved throughout the years. And I know something that you had mentioned when we had a previous conversation is how important it is for you to support women with hiring women paralegals. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Actually, they're lawyers. They're women lawyers that are my law clerks. But, that dovetails what Susan is saying. There's much that we can do to support women today. And even though I've seen a great deal of positive change, young women today that are lawyers are still telling me how difficult it is today in the workplace, because some women apply from all over the country to be law clerks. And when they come, they tell me that they have to hide their pregnancy when they're interviewing if they're pregnant, or they have to postpone a pregnancy or give up having children because it is so contrary to the mentality where they want to work, because it is still today considered to be that you're not serious about your job. That if you want to be a mother, if you want to have children, it means that I better hire this boy or this guy, this man that's applying also because he's serious, he's committed to the law, whereas she is not. And it makes it very difficult for women to get into the work that they truly want, and they feel that there's still a mommy route. If you choose to be there and also practice, and that's unbelievable to me in this day and age. I think by now it should be abundantly clear that women are completely able, competent, focused. What I've done over the years is, because of how hard it was for me when I was in private practice and as a judge when my children were sick, pre-COVID for many years, we've been working both at home and at work, except when we have a trial or something, and of course we have to be in the courtroom. But my law clerks for many years have been women for the most part. My children used to say, "Mom, you're going to get in trouble because you aren't hiring very many boys." But what happened is it's pretty easy to have your children in my chambers, because if you have sick children, you can work from home. And my law clerks end up sending me memos at 10 o'clock at night, when their children are asleep. But during the day when the children are sick, they're able to take them to the doctors themselves. They're able to make sure that they're getting their antibiotics. If they have a fever, they're not at home worrying that the babysitter is just not really paying attention to them. I mean, goes back to your agility. We can all be flexible, and we can all get our work done while still caring for our loved ones. And that's what we've always done in our chambers. One of the people that I work with is a single mom with one child. And when he was in high school playing basketball, she didn't want to miss his only games on varsity. So go. The work gets done. She would go to all of his games. And my God, to this day, she works evenings and weekends. Now she's caring for her mother-in-law. The point is, we can be agile. We can be caring. We can be at home. We can take care of our loved ones, and we can get our work done when the appointment is over. Yep. But we can be loving, and we can, it makes us, I think, better at what we do. Mm-hmm. When we get to know the people with whom we live enough to know that they have other things in their life that are more important, just as important as the work that we do.
And you're going to be a better employee,
yes,
a better employer. And we're fortunate that we have the technology nowadays that you can be, you can get the best of both worlds. You can be at a game and then step out and finish a phone call and then get back to it. So,
something that kind of popped into my mind, and I really appreciate that, talking about flexibility of your work hours and working remotely. And this is the first time that the state as an entity has had this remote work. We didn't have electronic signatures. And so even though this pandemic has been very difficult, it has forced some change. It's been a catalyst for some change in regards to that telework. And I think what we're learning is that, our state employees are still doing the work and doing it well at home. And it's been extremely helpful for those that have kids, especially because the schools may not be open and taking care of sick kids. And so I think, with this technology, with extending some trust, extending some flexibility, we're actually going to get higher productivity, and it's better for people's quality of lives.
Thank you, Jen. I just want to piggyback on that, because I think what it takes is each one of us, people in the audience, to be conscious of that and give people opportunities and be flexible. I'll never forget my former boss. I had just started out in my job in public policy, and I'm running, and I'm in my car, hands-free safe, and he says, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm running to this meeting." And he says, "Well, I thought your daughter had a play today." And I said, "She does, but I've got this meeting, and I can't go to her play." And he said, "You know what? Don't worry about going to the meeting. Go to your daughter's play. You have one chance to raise your kid. You're going to have hundreds of more meetings." But it takes people like that and leaders like all of us to make that conscious effort and say, yes, there are times that flexible, and let's let our employees go and spend that time or necessary time to go take their child to the doctor's office, or go to that sporting game that's really important to it. So I think that's hopefully one of the takeaways, is that we can all do our part to make that change.
Agreed. And I just want to touch on one other thing. The judge was talking about women trying to hide their pregnancies when they were trying to get hired or things like that. And, I was nervous to share that I was pregnant with the governor. It was definitely not an intended pregnancy for my little girl. And it was like 3 months after I stepped into this role, and I was nervous because I didn't want to let her down. But at the same time, I shared that I was pregnant, and she was so excited for me. And she looked at me and said, "I want you to hold us accountable if we're not supporting you enough. And of course, my eyes just filled up, with tears, because I mean, I did not imagine her saying that. And I think that really speaks to the force of change that we want for our society, for women. And sometimes it takes women to lead those changes that help women the most. Because it's just not something top of mind for male leadership sometimes. They don't have to experience it, so they don't realize it. But I think it's great that we are seeing more and more women leaders, and it is up to us to be flexible and to identify ways to support our fellow professionals and our colleagues.
We're having such a great conversation, ladies. I just want to thank you once again for joining us. But I also want to encourage our participants to please use the chat box on the right-hand side of a video, and please put any questions that you have for any of our speakers so we can get you engaged and answer those questions as well.
Maybe going on to changing subjects a little bit, but if you can tell us about a life experience that taught you something about yourself. What kind of an experience that you would want to share that taught you something about yourself?
For questions.
Go to Jen on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. I got something. I was trying to think of something else, but what pops into my mind, and it's because of the situation we're currently in, obviously, this has been a very trying year for everybody. It was terrifying at first. It was confusing. Whatever kind of emotional reaction he first had when this pandemic was happening. And I mean, everyone has had their own experience. This has really taught me how stubborn I am. In a positive way. I think my mom always said I was stubborn, and she meant it as an insult, but I realized that me being stubborn this year has helped me not give up. And it's encouraged my team not to give up. And so every time we come into an obstacle, my stubbornness just kind of kicks in, and I'm like, okay, if this isn't the answer, let's go to the next thing. This isn't the answer, let's keep digging. And just not accepting defeat, not accepting complacency. And I guess I always thought stubbornness was a bad thing. But that's something I've learned about myself, is stubbornness can really come in handy in these times.
Susan?
Well, now I'm back to my agility issue here. So, it's interesting because I think one thing that has been, just kind of over the course of my, work and life, and that somebody would say to me, "Oh, you're such a risk taker." I'm like, really? I'm not a risk taker. I just kind of keep doing stuff. I think it's interesting to sort of think about how, when you do stuff and you just try it, I guess I do believe that it's I want to go out and try it. I don't have a big, fear of failure, probably because I work with, in my family and everybody around me, we're all sort of in this together. So I feel like even if it doesn't come out the way we think, there's always a way to move through and to get better. But I guess it is interesting to think about it as a risk taker, because to me, it's just like what you do. You just do one thing and then you do another thing, and you want to try something. So I never thought of myself as a risk taker. And so just somebody saying that to me, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But it was something that I learned about myself, and understand that it's not, other people don't necessarily have that same, ability or ease of, how I grew up, whatever it was that allows them to feel as comfortable jumping in and taking a risk. So the fact that I can do that maybe helps other people around me be a little bit less risk adverse, I guess I would say. And that moves us forward.
When I was little, in grade school, my parents didn't speak English yet, and I used to translate all their mail, and I remember that we went to a Catholic school in our neighborhood, and I remember realizing for the first time that differently than everyone else. And my parents' friends were only other immigrant families that had recently come from Mexico. And they also only spoke Spanish. And my parents didn't understand, all the junk mail that everybody gets. And so I would read about insurance, which is something you have in Mexico. And I would read about all this stuff. And so I quickly learned that there's a life that's very different that other people have than what newly arrived immigrants have. And I learned in school that even poor people in our grade school who were not Mexican immigrants lived very differently from my parents. And I thought, well, why is that? Because we're learning in school that we're all the same, that we're all citizens. And it was in the third grade because of that experience, because of the inequality, because when my father went to a gas station to ask for $2 or $3 of gas, that's how cheap it was then, no one could understand him and he was made fun of. Because there used to be green vans that would pick up undocumented people, and my father, had been an undocumented man, and there was such fear in the communities in which we lived that I sensed this fear, and it was that experience that I didn't completely understand, but I knew then that I would be a lawyer because lawyers fix things. I didn't know what law school was. I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know how much money it took. I didn't know anything about college because my parents had not gone there. But that experience taught me that.
We are almost out of time, ladies. I cannot believe it, how quickly this has gone. But I do want to pose one of the questions that's in our chat box. And the question is, what are the most important takeaways in your career path you could share with us?
I think it's that everyone has the ability. When you're young, you don't know it, but you have the ability if you focus and if you work hard. And I know that sounds, so cheesy, but it is something that as a parent you try to invoke in your children. And it's something that when you're a teenager and you're in school, you doubt yourself so much. But looking back, I wish I'd known.
Jen?
Repeat that question one more time for me, please.
I think we may have frozen there for a brief moment. Susan, anything you want to add to that?
I think, I guess just looking back at creating and growing Southwest Creations, just, dream big. I mean, I think that don't let other people tell you something can't be done. And I think as women, we tend to do that a lot. And see what can happen, because amazing things can happen. And bring other people along with you. Because doing it I always say, if this were my business by myself, I would have never done it because it was too hard. But having that group of other people with me that were as invested in our mission and success as I was, we just kept dreaming big. Now we're moving into a new social enterprise center that's much bigger, will give us more opportunities. And part of me is like, oh my gosh, what have I done? But the other part of me is like, let's just do it. So don't be afraid to just keep dreaming and bring others with you, I guess would be my best direction.
Can you hear me now?
Jen, do you want to?
Can you hear me?
She's frozen.
Oh, did she freeze up? Okay. Okay. Then do you want to close out?
Well, do we have time for one more question? This question,
okay, 5 minutes? Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you go. This is a question that we always ask every single year because we love the answers that we receive.
Yeah. So one of our favorite questions we always like our panelists is, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Or your 40-year-old self, or both.
Well, Maya Rudolph was my son's graduation speaker at Tulane, and she was, of course, fabulous. But one of the things that she said, and I thought it was so great, she's like, girls, you're taking all those selfies of yourself now and whatever, and like you're all so confident, and you think you got the world by a string, and you kind of thought she was going a different direction. She goes, keep doing it, because that's good. Your confidence and your joy and your ability to just dream, and hold on to that, because that will help you when you're 40. So I thought that was a great 20-year-old self. Just be the confident, beautiful self that you are, and take risks and do stuff. And then I think one of my friends told me to say this. She said, and then when you're 40, forgive yourself for all those selfies you took when you were 20. Doesn't mean you're not going to be a serious person. So anyway, I thought that was great. So that's what I would say.
Jen, I think we lost you for a moment, but I'm glad you're back with us.
Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Excellent. There's a little bit of an echo, but if I was to talk to my 20-year-old self, I think I would tell her to just continue to accept opportunity as it comes about. I think sometimes we have a vision of exactly what we want, and when we can't get it, we don't see other opportunities that are right there. And so even though it's scary or unknown, or maybe not exactly what you envisioned, it might be better. And not to be scared, and try to continue to step forward and accept and walk into those opportunities.
Well, I used to think that lawyers had to be men, because most of them were in my 20s. And that they had to have loud, booming voices, and that they had to be really aggressive. And it took me a long time to be comfortable with my voice, which I have to keep being reminded is too soft. So I would just, I would have just told my 20-year-old self that it's okay to accept myself for being soft-spoken. It took me a long time. And to accept myself and the qualities that I was born with. You can be very effective and persuasive just accepting yourself.
Yep.
Well said. Well, ladies, it looks like we're out of time, but I just wanted to tell you so much. Thank you. Let's give a big virtual applause. Thank you for joining us. And we definitely miss being with you all in person. And we hope that we can be in person with you once again. But we're really glad that we had the opportunity that we could still share these important stories. As I mentioned, Sayuri and I, we came together 5 years ago to put together this event, and it's continued to grow. And it's because of these candid, heartfelt stories that we get to hear from so many fantastic women. I tell you, the biggest challenge we have with this luncheon, quite honestly, is singling out all the amazing women that we have throughout the state. And of course, thank you, Michelle Baca, for your inspiring words. We really enjoyed hearing from you. And if you have friends or colleagues or family members that didn't get the opportunity to join us today, this will be available for them to view on YouTube in the next few days. So check it out, go on SantaFeChamber.com and just view these conversations once again, as well as the other power-ups that we had back in November. Any final words, Sayuri?
I think once again, another successful Women in Leadership Luncheon. And thank you all for joining us today, and make it a great day.
Thank you.